All right, I'm going to just get started, Joya, and we'll just get this on the road. Here we go. All right, so I want to welcome everyone to the Light Beam Hour. I'm really excited that you're here today. This is part of my online school, Light Beam Academy, and this program is designed to provide a forum for masterful teachers to share their individual messages and wisdom and to help people all around the world expand, heal, and awaken their lives. Those of you who haven't been on the call before, my name is Cecily MacArthur, and I am the creator and host of Light Beam Hour. And let me introduce myself a little bit. I am a spiritual teacher, coach, speaker, and writer, and my life mission is to help people connect with spirit and awaken their authentic selves, discover their true purpose, embrace change and responsible choices, and create a life of their dreams. I have just recently published my first book. It's 7 Ways to Stay Positive in Challenging Times. And I'm very excited. I'm going to be having my first teleclass next week to teach this class, so I'm very excited about it. I'm also writing a children's book series, Mrs. Madison's Magic Garden, and I am very excited to be doing this spiritual work that I love as a spiritual life coach and a workshop trainer, and really also creating this new online academy. So I hope that other people go into lightbeamacademy.com and check it out, and we're adding new things all the time. So tonight my guest is Joya Baynes, and I'd just like to talk a little bit more about who she is before we get starting to talk to her. For 12 years of her career, Joya worked as an accountant in corporate America while traveling across the nation. During that time, she used her knowledge of herbs and alternative healing to answer queries from corporate clients and colleagues regarding their health. Ultimately, her life journey led her to the opening of Lifetime Health and Consulting, LLC, where she offers services for colon health therapy, dietary instruction, spiritual mentoring, and intuitive healing. She is a IACT certified colon therapist and a instructor level as well as the nationally board certified. Additionally, Joya is a publisher of Colonic Today. Colonic Today is a trade journal for the colonic therapy industry, and its mission is to bridge the communication gap between the colon therapists and the medical community for the benefit of the client and or the patient. To get more information about Joya, you can go to her website at www.colonlove.com, or for her trade journal, it's www.colonictoday.com. So just before we get started, I also would like to just talk a little bit about the format of the show. We have all of you as participants are on mute throughout the call, but at different times I will stop and ask for questions. And if you do have a question, you just have to hit 5* on your phone, and that will raise your hand, and then I can unmute you, and I can identify you by your the last 4 digits of your phone number, and then you can ask your question. I encourage people to ask questions because, you know, if you speak up, there's always somebody else out there who had the same question, and it helps everyone listening to better understand the content and to deepen in the learning for everyone. So I thank you ahead of time for your participation. So let's get started, and let's talk to Joya. Joya, hi, how are you today?
Hi, Cecily, how are you?
All right. I'm really excited about this call, and I'm really glad that you're here with us. I'd like you to start. Tell us a little bit more about how you got started and what you're focusing on today.
Okay. So the way that I turned to colon hydrotherapy is as a child, I experienced a lot of constipation. I didn't really understand where the problems were stemming from, and the doctors did tell me that I was in pretty bad shape and that I would never have any children, and they had to put me on a lot of medication. So I did take a lot of medication. I took a lot of steroids, and it didn't do very well for my colon or my body. So when I went to college, right before I graduated, I was really having a difficult time, very, very sick. And that's actually at the time when I was introduced to colon hydrotherapy. And so I also at the same time was introduced to herbology. And I noticed a huge difference in my life from adapting a lifestyle with herbs. And I changed my diet, and I employed colon hydrotherapy. And it really turned my life around. It turned my health around. And so ultimately, after or somewhere during the course of my time as an accountant, I actually kind of started to lean more towards the alternative health field. And then ultimately I wound up opening up my own company, and here I am today.
Wow, that's quite a history, and you really did suffer as a child with until you figured out how to help yourself. So why was colon therapy helpful for the particular condition that you had?
Okay, so what I learned is that 70 to 80% of the immune system actually resides in the colon, and so if your colon isn't operating efficiently, then it is very easy for you to have health problems. And so it was amazing to me once I learned that information, because it really made sense with all of the different ailments that I suffered as a child, why I was suffering so much. And so one of the things that is really beneficial when it comes to colon hydrotherapy is that the water actually hydrates the colon. And with the hydration of the colon, it actually allows for loosening of the fecal material, and it actually helps to hydrate and lubricate the colon so that old debris can begin to slough off the colon and come out of the colon. And so after undergoing a series of colon hydrotherapy sessions, I really started to notice a difference in my health, and it just blew me away. And it was, to me, I thought, okay, how much more do I not know about my own body that really could make a difference in my life? And that really was the pull for me to start to study herbology and anatomy and physiology and colon health.
Wow. Okay. So can you say more about the benefits? I mean, obviously you're talking about just cleaning out and helping the system work better, but tell me more about the benefits of going through this kind of cleansing process.
Okay. So there are many, many benefits to colon hydrotherapy. So to name just a few of them, it helps to relieve constipation. If you're having backaches, it's really good for that. Bad breath, diarrhea, indigestion, skin irritations, bloating, gas. Colon hydrotherapy is instrumental in so many different ailments like those and beyond. But one of the things that colon hydrotherapy does is when it begins to hydrate the colon, it actually starts to wake up the peristalsis that is inside of the colon. So the peristalsis is the muscle movement of the colon. And so when you start to take in that hydration and you start to get some results of releasing some of that debris from the colon, you're actually waking up the muscle and reminding the muscle that it can move. So it helps to retrain the bowel so that the bowel will begin to work more efficiently. So one of the analogies that I like to use when I'm talking to clients is that kind of consider it when you want to go to the gym. Say you have a little bit of weight on your body and your muscle tone is kind of down or kind of low. So you decide that you're going to go to the gym and work out so that you can start to see that muscle tone. And so when you go to the gym, if you just went one time, it would be very difficult for you to see the results that you're trying to achieve with weight loss and muscle tone. But if you go to the gym with a certain type of regimen in mind and you're going, once or twice a week or however often your schedule permits, ultimately you will see the results that you're looking for because the weights are retraining that muscle. And so it's the same thing with the water when you come for a colonic. The water is actually retraining that bowel and helping that bowel to remember, the muscle to remember that it actually can move optimally, and so then it begins to wake up and move more efficiently.
So it really is just like exercising a muscle. It's teaching it how to do what it's supposed to do.
Exactly.
Great. That's very cool. So, I mean, so the basic physical benefits are incredible to being able to clean out your system. But there's also another tie to this in terms of your own spirituality and emotional ties. Can you talk a little bit more about how you see that in the work that you do, and more about the intuitive healing that you do when you're actually going through colonics with your clients?
Okay. So that's a tricky subject to talk about, but let's see. All right. The bowel actually is a very intelligent organ, but it's also a very emotional organ. And it has a tendency to hold on to our life story, basically the DNA of our life and our actions and our movement and our experiences. They're inside of the colon. And so the colon actually also responds very well to the brain. And so I know at some point in time there was a documentary on, I believe it was either 20/20 or 60 Minutes, where they talked about the colon being the second brain. But there is a direct communication that happens between the colon and the brain. And so a lot of times when I'm working with my clients, yes, they are coming in for a colonic, but intuitively there's also a level of spirituality, intuition, directed healing that comes into play when working with clients. And so a person, for example, may have some issues that they're dealing with, some stress in their life, and they're kind of carrying it. They think about it. Say they're, I don't know, maybe having, I have a client that actually attends Harvard, and so I'll use her as an example. She carries a lot of stress. She carries a lot of stress in her life, definitely. She is a top-notch student, so she really doesn't have too much to worry about, but she's used to the pressure of putting that stress upon her so that she performs and she keeps her A's into play. And so she thinks about it all the time, and she sets herself up like, what if I don't do this, and what if I don't do that? And so it increases her levels of stress. Then, after a while, it's very difficult for her to go to the bathroom. Why? Because the colon is carrying the stress that she is applying in her brain. It's interpreting that stress, and it's holding on to it, and it's trying to release it, but it's finding it's difficult to do so without her being consciously on board. And so that's where the connection comes into play with your emotions and with your gut. If you're highly stressed, or if you're worried, or if you're fearful, or if you're having a lot of anxiety, then it certainly can have an impact on your colon and the movement of your colon.
And so what happens in the colonic process to that trapped energy?
Okay. So let's stay with my Harvard client. She was actually very interesting when she came into the office because she's actually quite young, and it was fascinating to me to see how her body was interpreting the type of stress that she was holding. And so she begins her colonic procedure, and the energy when you're getting a colonic begins to circulate, and it starts to express itself because the bowel at this point is open, and it's allowed to express some of the traumas that it is going through because of what you as a person are putting your body through. And so as her body begins to express this stress, she begins to sweat. And she's sweating actually quite a bit. So, I'm wiping the sweat. And then she begins to talk about, at first when she came into the office, she said that everything was fine, and she's just doing her work, but she's handling everything. But once she started sweating, she actually started to begin to speak about the things that really, really were bothering her. So her grades were one. The other thing that was bothering her is that this other students that she had been working with were giving her a hard time. And then the last thing that she was really worried about is that she was in a relationship that she did not really want to be in, but she didn't know how to tell her partner that she wanted him to move. So this was a lot of stress on her. Mm. As she begins to talk about it, her mouth starts to kind of close up a little bit, and it becomes very difficult for her to talk. And then her hands actually start to become very numb, and then they start to kind of quiver. And so she's starting to get really nervous because she's wondering what's happening. And I could tell that, it was her body interpreting all of the stress that it was carrying. So it was a great idea for her to come for the colonic. But, it was really, it was tricky in order to help her to stay even enough to go through this process so that she can start to release some of that stress from her body. So ultimately she did. But the key was that she came back for quite a few more colonics after that. It did take us some time to work through that amount of stress that she was dealing with. Probably around her fifth colonic, she actually started she stopped mimicking those symptoms. The sweat did go away. She was able to speak more freely about everything that was going on in her life, and she didn't have any numbness or quivering in her hands, and she was actually starting to go to the bathroom a lot better. In the midst of all of that, from week to week, I do work with my clients on different assignments that they have to work on to help themselves mentally to deal with the stress, and so she had been working on her assignments, and so she did make quite a bit of progress and was able to move forward.
Wow. So it's almost like you get a verification from the colon that the work is actually happening, that when you said took the fifth session, you could tell that the symptoms were gone and she had released the stress from her body.
Exactly.
And you can actually, there's physical evidence that it's happened and that you can actually see it in her behavior and her whole system and how it's functioning.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's challenging because, if you're coming in for your first colonic experience, first of all, you have anxiety just because you're coming in there, and then to have to experience something like that, you're thinking, oh no, did I make the right decision? So it's really important that you have someone, a trained colon therapist, to help you to navigate through the process because really you're releasing some things from your body that will prevent you from having a stroke later on in life or diabetes or cancer because you're learning how to express yourself and learning how to release the stress, to not worry about things that are in the future where you have no power, but to stay in the present moment and deal with your life as it stands today in this hour. And so it's difficult initially to get clients to understand that, it's really important for them to continue to move through the process so that they can get rid of that stress. But to be able to achieve that, to be able to communicate effectively to a client and help them to understand this is trapped energy and holding onto in your body that could culminate into some other diseases. And so it's really a great idea for you to continue with a few more colonics so that you can release that trapped energy and then you can move forward in your life more efficiently. But once you're able to get the client to understand that, it's really an honor to actually be a part of somebody's healing process like that and to watch them metamorphosize into a better place.
That's amazing to me.
It is amazing.
The connection between the mind and the body and the emotions and it comes to mind that people. Your young student example, she had current stress in terms of what she was experiencing, but it was also looking at things that may have happened in the past and traumas that people are holding for many, many years and aren't even aware of that they're actually holding that energy. How does that work?
Well, it's actually good that you brought that up because we'll stick with her as an example. So her current stress actually had a lot to do with some of the things that she had experienced in the past as a child. So for her, she came from a big family, and she always felt like she wasn't quite enough, like she couldn't do enough, she wasn't good enough, her grades weren't good enough. So she always really worked overtime to try to be noticed in her family. And she never really quite felt like she was noticed. And so, of course, she carries these same types of behaviors into her young adulthood because she's still trying to get that validation that she was trying to get as a child. The other thing that happened with her is that her father was actually very dominant, and her mother didn't have much of a voice in their household. And so from a child's perspective, she's watching this as she grows up. And so what does she do? Quite naturally, she grows up and she gets into the same type of relationship. So here she is in a relationship with this boy, a young man, and she wasn't feeling comfortable with him living in the same space with her. However, she could not find her voice to actually say to him, I want you to move. So she just continued to tolerate it, even though she wasn't, that's not what she wanted. And so a lot of this actually does stem from your childhood, but it's a willingness on the client's part and allowing that has to happen for them to bring forth that information within themselves. They're not giving the information to me. They're giving the information to themselves so that they can recognize where their behaviors are coming from, so that they can start the process of changing those behaviors, which actually empowers that person so that they can actually move forward and take the steps that they need to take to find that balance in their life. And so for her, after so many colonics and working on her assignments in between time, she was able to actually find some of her voice. It definitely will be an ongoing process for her. But she was actually able to speak her truth, and she did talk to him, and so he did move out, I believe, like 2 months later.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So, again, she was able to take action in her life because she actually addressed this energy, this trapped energy in her body, and was able to move forward and be more of who she is.
Exactly.
That's amazing. That's a great story, Joya. We have. I'm going to stop here for a moment and ask questions. There's one person who's been very patient and had their hand up, and I would just like to check in with that person who's looking for a question, and then if anyone else has a question. So I just unmuted you. The last 4 numbers of your phone number is 4556. Hello? You have a question
Hello.
for Joya?
Yes, how are you?
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Carlton Smith. Hello, Joya.
Hi, Carlton. How are you?
Hi. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Joya, I'm very proud of you also. You're doing a great job.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm down here in Savannah, Georgia, and I wanted to ask you, I asked you it before, but I guess I want to put it out there because I'm sure some other people have similar questions, and this way we might be able to cover some of them. But I was asking, what would I do for, you to be proactive? Remember I asked you that about being proactive and stop something before it starts. I don't want to wait until it hits me, because I don't really know the background of my genes and things like that. It's just hereditary, the colon thing. Stuff. That's my question.
Okay, so it sounded like you had maybe 2 questions inside of that, and so let me see if I can address both of them. So the first one, you wanted to find out what you have to do to become more proactive to make sure that your colon stays in optimal working condition. Is that what you were asking?
Correct.
Okay, all right, and so there's a lot of things that can happen here. One of the things that should happen is you have to check in with your diet, and diet spans across so many different lines. So it would be challenging for me to kind of narrow it down for you over the phone. But you have to be careful with what you put into your body because you are what you eat. And so if you're eating some really damaging things like Doritos and, macaroni and cheese in abundance and, not having a lot of variety in your diet, then you could have difficulty with going to the bathroom because, for example, if the cheese doesn't agree with you, your genetic makeup, then ultimately it would cause you to become more constipated, and then you would have difficulty going to the bathroom. Along with your dietary intake is water. A lot of people do not like to drink water, and a lot of times people think that they can drink, sparkled water or fruit-flavored water. But the thing that you have to realize is that nothing takes the place of H2O. If you add anything to H2O, it changes its molecular structure, and it's no longer H2O. So actually a fruit-flavored water is not really H2O because something is added into it. And so the body, it has at least 70% of the body is made up of water. And so if it's made up of water, then you actually have to put water into the body to continue to replenish it. So that is one of the ways that you can help to become more proactive. And then one of the main things that you should try to do is work with your mind and be honest with yourself about what it is you like, what it is you don't like, what it is you want, where you're going, if you're being honest, if you're speaking your truth, because so much of that would have an impact as to whether or not your colon works efficiently. Does that answer your first question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And so your second question, I don't remember what it was. Cecily, help me out.
Hereditary.
Yeah. Okay, hereditary. If you have colon health issues, is it hereditary? Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of times babies, a fetus does inherit the mommy's colon or the daddy's colon. Some kind of issues have a tendency to filter over. And I do get a lot of people that come into my office where at least one of their parents had some colon health issues. But the fascinating thing to me around that hereditary piece is that usually that person has also inherited the mental work that a person does to get themselves into a sticky place with their colon. And so, for example, I'll get a person that comes in and their mother actually had colon health issues, but their mother also was a worrywart, or their mother also experienced a lot of stress, or their mother also did not speak her truth. And so quite naturally, the colon interpreted that for her, and the colon began to have problems because the mother wasn't able to express herself the way she needed to express herself or be honest with herself. And so in that sense, it can be hereditary. But can you change it? Yes. The body has the ability to heal itself, and so you can actually change anything if you really want to. You just have to do the work to help the colon to be able to change its behaviors. Did I answer your question?
You sure did, Joya. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
All right, Carlton. And thanks so much for asking your question. I'm going to put you back on mute, and we'll keep going. This is great. Now, what you were just saying, Joya, about because it definitely seems like there is a distinction. I mean, physically you could inherit a potential weakness in the colon, but I think it sounds like from what you're saying, it's really more of the learned habits that you get passed down in a family that can be the real culprits here. Sure,
definitely. We, as children have a tendency to interpret things to the best of their ability. And so, and children watch. They do more of what you do than what you say. And so children do have a tendency to take on the same things that their parents do. I have another client that I've worked with, and she's really funny. She's actually another Harvard student. I do get a lot of Harvard employees and students. And so she had a lot of stress when she first started to see me. And so one of the things that she used to always do is set herself up for failure. And so let me give you an example of what this individual would do. She had a lot of food issues. And so she would go in the cabinet and she would pick something up and she would say, oh, I know I shouldn't eat this because if I eat this, it's definitely going to make me sick. And then she would eat it and then she would get sick. like clockwork. And so, so I told her, the most important thing for you to do is to pick up the food and say, I know this food is going to serve its purpose in my life and treat my body well. Then that way you have a little bit more control over how the food is going to affect your body. So, as we move forward in her colonic treatments, she finally gets to this place in her life where she's actually doing quite well. And she says to me, well, now I understand where all of this is coming from. And I said, oh, really? Where is it coming from? And she says, well, my mother is a worrywart, and she always feels like she doesn't have enough time. She's always really stressed out. She has issues with her food, and I have actually been doing the same things that I saw her do growing up as a child.
She recognized that she had the same pattern,
exactly.
the same habit. Wow. And she was able to shift that around then?
She actually was able to shift it around. I mean, it is a work in progress, as you already know. It takes time to change those behaviors, and you really do have to keep it consciously at the forefront of your mind. So, some days I would see her, and she was extremely empowered, and then some days I would see her, and she would say, I had a setback, and which it's normal. The greatest thing about her acknowledging that she had a setback is that her red flag was going up, and she actually noticed her red flag, because as individuals, we have red flags that go up all the time. Our body speaks to us. Before you go into play with any kind of ailment or colon health issues, your body, your colon says, hello, I need some help here. But you as an individual don't respond to the red flags until you get to this place where you have problems. You can't go to the bathroom, or you have colon cancer, or you have polyps. Then you want to become proactive. So one of the greatest things about, a person going through a series and going through this process is that they start to reconnect with their body, and they do start to pay attention to the red flags. So before that red flag can turn into an ailment, they change the behavior so that they can, live more optimally.
So they get more in tune to the signals that we all get them. I know that does happen, but we ignore an awful lot of them, or we don't stop to actually listen to them. So this really helps you to connect the importance of keeping yourself together and keeping your system running well. So that's great. I know you were talking to Carla about diet, and that there are not, without everyone is different and going to have different specific diet issues. But in general, are there some recommendations you have around, again, keeping the system functioning optimally when you talk about diet?
Well, diet is such a huge subject. So I have a few suggestions. One is to definitely increase your water intake. To all of my coffee drinkers out there, really, really try to move away from the coffee. Coffee and caffeine is very dehydrating to the colon. And so I have a lot of people that come into my office, and they're like, oh, I drink a ton of water. I drink almost a gallon a day. And I'm like, really? How much coffee do you drink? Because, when they fill out their intake questionnaire, they have to identify what they're putting into their body. And so a lot of times, people are drinking enough coffee or they're just drinking coffee. I shouldn't say enough. They're drinking coffee. And so if coffee is dehydrating to the colon, then what is happening to that water that you're putting into the colon? Not quite all of it is being absorbed, because you're drinking something that is actually taking away the water. And so I talk to people all the time, to veer off of the diet for a second, that if you have a dehydrated colon, and because the body is one unit, the body is not just one part over here and one part over there. The body works together, so all of those organs work together. If your colon is dehydrated, 9 times out of 10, it has a partner organ that is also dehydrated. So if you're drinking water and you have other organs that exist in the body prior to the colon, then by the time the water is consumed by other organs that are dehydrated, how much water is left for the colon to hydrate itself? So you have to be very careful about the foods that you're putting into your body, the liquids especially that are dehydrating, because if you're dehydrating your colon, you're also dehydrating other organs in your body. So coffee, if you are a coffee drinker, please try to move away from the coffee or at least cut back.
What about soda? Soda, is that in the... Oh, you're just going to say soda?
Exactly. Yeah, just about to say soda is the same thing. It's carbonated, and my sparkling water drinkers as well. So it can be dehydrating, but the other thing that happens with the carbon is that it creates additional gas in the body. So it doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't make sense to consume something that's going to increase the gas inside of your body. A lot of times people are very addicted to carbon. They like the bubbles, so that's why they're consuming it. The same thing with soda, but it can be harmful. I have an athlete that I work with that is pretty well known, and she loves carbonated water. And I did talk to her about, moving away from the carbon, and she's like, oh, I can't. I just love it. I love it so much. But after so many colonics, she's like, why am I so gassy? And I'm like, well, why don't you at least try it for a moment and move away from the carbon and see what happens with your colonics, see if it makes a difference. And she did see the difference. So actually now she has enough willpower to stay away from the carbon.
Ah, great. Direct evidence again. That's really great when you can actually see the change.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great.
So in terms of, go ahead.
Oh, other tips of food tips? Or diet tips?
Right, exactly. So in terms of the food tips, breakfast, lunch, dinner, one of the things that I will definitely say is that when you are consuming food, the best thing that you can do is pay attention to your food combinations. And so it's a really good idea that when you're eating a meal, you have flesh and or protein and vegetables together, and that's it. So the typical standard American diet includes a flesh, a carbohydrate, and a vegetable. That's the way that we're all used to eating. That's the way they serve the meals in the restaurants. But really, you should just have the flesh and the vegetables, and then if you are going to have a carbohydrate with that, you should wait at least 20 to 30 minutes before you consume the carbohydrate. On the flip side of that, if you're not having any flesh, then you can have carbohydrates and vegetables. So the main thing to remember is to never mix carbohydrates and flesh. And the reason being is because they digest in the body at two different rates. So it can take anywhere from 10 to 12 hours to digest a carbohydrate. And then it can take anywhere upwards of 12 to 14 to 16 hours for a flesh to digest, depending on which one you're consuming. Yeah, it takes much longer time to digest a flesh. And so when you eat them together, the body can get quite confused. And so something is not being digested properly. I mean, your first line of digestion happens actually in your mouth. So something is not being broken down all the way it should be. And so then you have foods that are sent down throughout the digestive tract prematurely that are not properly digested. Then they hit the colon. So if you have a food inside of your colon that's not properly digested, that food actually has the ability to puncture holes in the lining of the colon wall. And then you start getting into leaky gut. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure you chew your food thoroughly, so masticate your food very, very, very well. And then you also want to pay attention to your food combinations so that you can really help your colon to move forward with digestion.
I find that really does help, and I don't always do it because that something about that sandwich. We really are. We have a culture around mixing those carbohydrates with it, but I do try, and I definitely notice the difference when I do that kind of combination.
Yeah,
so I do appreciate that. What about probiotics? How would you talk about that?
So probiotics help to put good bacteria into your system. So typically when a person comes into my office, the balance of the good bacteria versus the bad bacteria is off, and it's off in a lot of people. And so one of the things that probiotics is supposed to do, to keep it in simple terms, is supposed to help to put that balance back into the body by providing good bacteria. Now, there are tons of different types of probiotics that exist on the market, and so how are you able to tell which probiotic works best for you? That is a very challenging question to answer. I like to follow the policy that more is not always better, so sometimes less is better. And so I also like to follow the policy. A lot of times probiotics are refrigerated. That's the way to keep the bacteria alive. I like probiotics that are not refrigerated just because I have a lot of movement, and it's very difficult for me to keep my strains of bacteria cold while I'm moving around in an environment where, like it's summertime right now, it's really warm out. So one of the probiotics that I really have endorsed is Dr. O'Hara's probiotic, and you can look on my website if you're trying to find it. But Dr. O'Hara's probiotic is cultured outside, and so it is in capsules, and you can keep it in your pocketbook, and the culture will still stay good. And the other thing that I like about Dr. O'Hara's probiotic is that it has a dual purpose, and so a lot of times people are consuming probiotics so that they can help their colon become more balanced. But the other thing with Dr. O'Hara's probiotic is that you can actually chew the capsules. And so if you're having any dental health issues like gingivitis or achy gums or an achy tooth or whatever, and you actually chew the probiotic, or you can break the capsule and you can squirt the probiotic on the problematic area, it actually is very, very beneficial in helping to heal the tissues and to heal the problem area. So I really enjoy Dr. O'Hara's probiotic.
Great. So it sounds like then that really is an important piece to keeping the whole system running and keeping that balance of the good and bad bacteria, that everyone should practice something around taking probiotics in.
I have to be honest with you. I think that taking probiotics consistently is a really good idea. I think that if you skip sometimes, it is okay. There hasn't been, as far as I know, there has not been a study to actually validate how much good versus bad bacteria is being released from the body when you get a colonic. And so it is difficult for me to actually say that if you take a probiotic when you get a colonic or otherwise that you're definitely creating that balance. But I do believe that taking probiotics is very helpful to the digestive system. And like I said, with Dr. O'Hara's product, and I have consumed many, many different types of probiotics. With his probiotic, I actually could see the difference in my colon's response once I consumed it. So I do think that probiotics are very, very helpful.
All right, great. Is there anything else that would also help the system keep running as a supplement that you would recommend? Well, I have one other product that I would suggest, but I actually only suggest this product if my clients are water drinkers. And this is a colon cleanser. It's called, I drew a blank. What's it called, Cecily? Fiber Blend.
Yes, Herbal Fiber Blend.
I was hoping that's what you were referring to. I love that stuff.
Herbal Fiber Blend is my favorite. However, and you can find Herbal Fiber Blend on my website as well if you go to www.colonlove.com. I love Herbal Fiber Blend. However, I have to tell everyone out there that is listening, if you do not drink water, please do not consume that product because it can create a bigger problem if you're not drinking enough water to compensate for the amount of fiber that you're putting into your body. So I suggest that if you are going to purchase a herbal fiber blend, that you definitely follow the instructions and you drink the amount of water that the product is requiring you to drink. But yes, I love herbal fiber blend. And by the way, I do have to warn everyone that it does taste like dirt. It does work, but it does taste like dirt.
it does taste like dirt. But can you talk more about the benefits of that? Why would people want to take it?
Okay, so herbal fiber blend is made up of a lot of different herbs and fiber. And so it is extremely beneficial in helping to cleanse the colon, and it also helps to tone the bowel as well. For a lot of my clients that are coming and they have gotten into a series, I really like for them to take the herbal fiber blend because I feel like it enhances the process and it actually helps to catapult my clients' success in terms of trying to achieve optimal colon health a lot faster if they're consuming herbal fiber blend. But one of the main things that I really, really love about herbal fiber blend is that the herbs contained in the ingredients are anti-parasitic, and so you will get some results in terms of releasing some of the friends that you house in your colon as a result of having too much bad bacteria in the system. You can get rid of some of the parasites.
Can you talk a little bit more about parasites and the prevalence of them? I know nobody wants to talk about it. It's a really gross idea, but I remember learning this from you, and I was very impressed that I didn't understand how widespread this issue is.
Okay, so I don't know what I told you, but but I will say that parasites are everywhere. I mean, a lot of times people think that you have to travel outside of the country and that's where you'll get exposure to parasites, but that simply isn't true. I mean, you can certainly get exposure to parasites right here in the United States. Let's start first with my sushi eaters because I get a lot of sushi eaters, especially in New England. They love to consume sushi. And what is sushi? It's like raw fish. And what is housed in raw fish a lot of times? Parasites, worms. So, for my sushi eaters, I see a lot of worms that go through the instrument because they are consuming sushi. The other thing is that you have to remember that a lot of our foods or fruits and vegetables at certain times of the year are imported from outside the country. And so it is possible to get parasites that way. There's things in the dirt, and if you go to the beach, there's things in the sand. There's many different ways that you can get exposure to parasites, and so they do exist, and it is a good idea, I think, to have a periodic parasite cleanse, maybe like anywhere from 1 to 3 times a year, because it's likely that you can have parasites. Pinworms are pretty popular in the area as well, not just the area of New England, but all over. So let me just explain to anyone that's listening. If you have pinworms, what they like to do in the middle of the night is they like to travel to the anus. I guess that's just where they're getting air, or that's just what they like to do. And then your anus gets like really, really, really itchy. Then it's likely that you have pinworms if that's happening. And so one of the things that I like about the herbal fiber blend is that the herbs in there are very, very powerful. And typically when you consume herbal fiber blend, you actually have an opportunity to get rid of the pinworms a lot quicker than using some of the other methods that are out there. And so that's another type of parasite that does exist. But make no mistake about it, parasites, it's a widespread problem more than what people think, and it does culminate and cause other diseases besides just colon health issues. So there's a lot of different books out there. I think I may have one on my website called Guess What Came Guess What Came to Dinner, I think it's called. And you can learn about parasites and where they come from through that book. And if it's not on my website, then I'll make sure I put it up there.
All right. Well, it's an unpleasant topic, but I'm really glad you talked about it because I don't think people are really aware of that aspect of it, and that it is something that you would want to consider getting cleansed and taking some product similar to the fiber blend if that was going to help you. So
exactly. I mean, people are not aware, and a lot of times people don't like to talk about it. People get very, very squeamish when they think about parasites living in their body, or if they come in for a colonic. A lot of times I won't even tell you if I see something because some people get really, really freaked out. One of the things that I do in my office, because I do have a lot of clients that see me on a regular basis, is we do different cleanses together. And so actually right now, a lot of us are on a parasite cleanse. I'm trying out a product that was endorsed at one of our conventions, and we're moving through the product, and it's a pretty decent cleanse. I like it.
Good. So an additional product then.
Yes.
What we've already mentioned. And is that on your website also?
Actually, that one is not on my website because you actually know that I have a policy that I want to try something out for a while before I advertise it to the masses to make sure that it's a really good product.
So you're still in that testing process then?
I am, and a couple of my clients have joined me. But some of the products are on my site, but they're being sold separately, not as a kit, and this actually comes in a kit.
Ah, okay. All right.
So, but Herbal Fiber Blend is a part of that. I found that I really like the Herbal Fiber Blend as a part of this kit, so I did tell you about that.
And it's good stuff, even if it tastes like dirt.
Exactly.
I did buy the raspberry flavored one, and it was a little better.
I thought it was better. I don't think it works as efficiently as the original flavored.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It tastes better, though.
I don't think so, Cecily.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty funny, but it is worth it. I have to tell you, definitely from personal experience, I can tell you that it is a product that I will endorse myself. So we've covered a lot of information here. I would like to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your publication and a little bit more about that work that you're doing there and how you're helping to build a bridge to the medical community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so Colonic Today is the name of the trade journal, and it actually is the first industry colon therapy industry trade journal, and it does exist in electronic format. And so the mission of Colonic Today is to bridge the communication gap between the colon health practitioner and the medical community for benefit of the patient/client. And so the journal, actually the articles that are in the journal will actually support the efficacy of colon therapy as an adjunct therapy, and peripherally it will, create and foster this collaboration between the two communities. And one of the reasons why the journal came into existence is because there are so many questions that are given to me and my colleagues about the colon and how come the medical provider doesn't support colon therapy more wholly. And so I think for me, I listen to that a lot, but then I also have a lot of corporate clients that come into my office, and there are many, many questions that were posed to me that would that made sense in terms of, a collaboration between the medical community and the colon therapist. And so a lot of my clients were actually pushing for me to put together this trade journal. I was kind of dragging my feet because I thought maybe somebody else would do the journal. But I think the last straw for me was I had a client come in, and it happens very often, but there was something about this particular experience that just kind of tipped the scales for me. And she's laying on the table, she's getting her colonic, she's talking about how her life had changed drastically once she started getting the colonics with me, and she hadn't seen me for maybe like a month, and then she came back and she started moving forward again. She was trying to explain to her provider that colon therapy was very, very instrumental in her life and really had made a difference. And her provider wasn't listening to her, and she actually was crying and laying on the table just crying, and was like, I don't understand why my doctor won't listen to me. I mean, I can't see how come she's not making the connection with the results. And I thought, okay, this really, really is affecting people, as I already knew. But I guess, I don't know, maybe it was her tears. I don't know what it was, but it really
motivated you.
Yeah, it motivated me, and I said, okay, I got to put this trade journal together. And so it's an actually really exciting venture because once I started putting the information out and soliciting for contributors, there were quite a few. There are a lot of MDs out there that actually support the efficacy of colon therapy. And so one of the articles that I have in the journal right now in the current issue is called Having the Guts to Heal, and it was written by Dr. Lorraine Hurley. It's a really powerful article, but she does speak to the paradigm shift that actually needs to happen in the medical community, and she kind of ties in colon therapy at some point in time in the article, but it's a really powerful article, but it's that kind of information that's actually going to start to bring the two communities together so that people will be able to benefit more in terms of getting the colon health that they should be getting, because it's really frustrating, hearing some of the stories of people that come into the office where they've had colonectomies or they've undergone sigmoidoscopies and they're really, really young. Some people are talking about having the colon completely removed and just connecting directly to the small intestine. So, there's a lot of things that are happening out there. And, if a lot more people knew that colon hydrotherapy is beneficial to helping them to achieve optimal health, and that if we could work more closely with the medical providers, like, for example, in Florida, there are a lot more medical providers that are starting to put colon therapy actually in the hospitals and in their practices because it is an effective therapy. So if a lot more of that was happening, then I think a lot more people would be saved from having colon health issues. So that's where the journal came from, and the project is actually moving forward quite nicely. So you can feel free to go online. There are a few things that you can see about the journal without being a subscriber, but to actually get into the meat of the articles that are written by some of the providers, you would actually have to subscribe. So the website is colonictoday.com.
That's great. A very valuable concept that you came up with to put these two together and to really help the patients to optimize their health and connect with the medical field. I think it's astounding and what you're doing, and I'm very impressed with what could possibly happen as a result of what you're doing. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's really, really amazing. So I wanted to just check and see if there's anyone who has any questions for Joya before we wrap up here. Again, you press 5-star on your phone, and any questions that you'd like to ask at this time. I know it's been a lot of information, and doesn't look like it, so we're going to keep moving. Joya, I'd just like you to sort of final words, think about what you would like to leave the listeners with today in terms of keeping their system in balance and what they should be doing or thinking of considering to connect their body and mind together.
Well, I think probably one of the things that I would really like to mention to people is that, colon hydrotherapy actually, there's nothing to be afraid of around colon hydrotherapy. A lot of times people don't want to engage in the therapy because they're thinking that it's going to be painful. And it really isn't painful as long as you're, with the right therapist that is actually walking you through the process. It really does not hurt at all to get a colonic. That initial insertion, doesn't hurt. And so once you actually move into the therapy, you find that it can be very relaxing. And once you're finished with the therapy, you feel absolutely wonderful. And so you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you just have to take a chance, and you'll be surprised at the results that you get if you just allow yourself to take a chance. And so try to release the fear around, the anus, because there is a lot of fear around the anus, and quite naturally so because people are used to things leaving out of the colon instead of coming into the colon. But when you think about the benefits that you could achieve, and when you think about being able to retrain the bowel so that the muscle actually can work more efficiently, when you think about the fact that 70 to 80% of your immune system does reside in your colon, that's a lot of power for one organ in the body to have. So if you clean it, then you actually optimize your immune system. When you think about being able to, some of you have histories of colon cancer in your family, and IBS and Crohn's disease, et cetera, et cetera. So when you think about if you just take a few steps to cleanse the colon, the fact that you could actually redirect and move away from, change the history in your family basically, and not have to adhere to some of those ailments, then it might be worth, trying to lay aside your fear and trying it. It really isn't a bad therapy at all, and you'll be actually happy that you did try it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Joya. You have really provided so much information, and you have so much knowledge. So I was really excited to have you here tonight to share just a little bit of it, the tip of the iceberg. But certainly, you are a great resource, and there's a lot of information on your page. And we did set up a link from Lightbeam Academy for people, lightbeamacademy.com/Joya. That's Joya. And that does redirect to the website, and we will be posting this interview on Lightbeam Academy, so people in the future and anyone who had signed up will also get a replay. So we hope that this will be useful for people, and that people will utilize the information that you've provided here, because it was really, really outstanding. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to talk about the next show. Our next show will be on August 11th. Lightbeam Hour will feature Rick and Lisa Olson. They are family coaches, and they have a program called Fuse. It's Family, Unify, Strengthen, and Empower. They are encouraging and inspiring families to set the time to let your family come first. They're an amazing couple, and they're just all about family and children, and really communication is a big issue for them. So this is going to be a great call. So we'll look for announcements on that, and we will see you. I'm only going to have one show in August because I'm going on vacation. So, so on the 11th, we will definitely have a good time talking to Rick and Lisa. So once again, I want to thank you all for being here for the Lightbeam Hour, and thank Joya for a really great session and tremendous information. So take care, everyone, and good night.